Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our third segment of Futsal Talk WA. Today we are going to be talking to two young ladies, Tayna Campos and Hayley, Jahn, who are both West Coast Futsal representative players. We'll be going through the development of futsal over the last 5 years, since Tayna and Hayley became involved in the representative programs in around 2015, what they've seen with the Superliga, their own involvements and I guess introductions to coaching and to different activities within the game, what it's meant to them and how they feel the game itself is developing, as well as of course their own development. Before we get to those two, I've been asked quite a few questions in between each Saturday, and the one that comes up most of the time is about philosophy, futsal philosophy, coaching philosophy. What are my ideals, intentions, ways of working with coaching? And I think one of the big things I quite often go back to is after the 2019 Youth Men's International Futsal Alliance World Cup, where the Australian Youth Men's team that I was coaching beat a Spanish side in the final, I did an interview and one of the questions was, where to from here, what now? And I said one of the biggest problems, and it's an issue that we have had in outdoor football, and it's quite an Australian issue, is that we have success, we do something really well, but then we don't necessarily build from it. You look at the golden generation in the outdoor football, the likes of Harry Kuehl, Mark Viduka, Mark Schwarzer, Marco Bresciano, Vince Grella, Tim Cahill. There was that unbelievable generation of players, and then what came next was a jumble of things with the FFA, the A-League, and lots of different problems. So I think what I said in that interview was, we can't just go back to Australia and have things continue the way that they have been. We didn't do a proper preparation for that tournament. We didn't have a selection camp where we had 20 or 25 players come together and train or essentially trial best of the best against the best of the best. We selected the team from the national championships, and then we did training camps, but it wasn't ideal. And it's the same with club futsal, with state level elite futsal like our Superliga in Perth, where some players train 2 or 3 times a week, but others will maybe train once a week. Some players sort of down into the second division or the youth leagues don't train at all. So that idea, that professionalism needs to come into the game as we move forwards, and if we are to continue to move forwards. And I think everything comes from there. You talk about the way that you coach and your coaching philosophy. A coaching philosophy is fine, and it's important to have direction and to understand yourself and what you want and what you want from your teams and that sort of stuff. But and this was something that Audrey touched on last week. Without more competition, without games at a higher level for our better players on a regular basis, we're not going to continue to move forwards as a game and as a nation. So I think my philosophy with coaching juniors was always about them having fun. We encourage them to have fun. Stuff like, there are certain peeves that I have with parents saying things like, don't muck around with it back there, get rid of it, never across goal. There's little sayings that a lot of parents say, and it's meant to help, but they're not trying to be disruptive. They're trying to help their child to experience success, but in the long run it's actually taking decision-making situations away from their child. So I strongly try to discourage that sort of thing and always encourage kids to learn from mistakes. and in order to learn from mistakes, they have to make them. If a child feels comfortable and knows that they're not going to be punished or shouted at or scolded in the car on the way home because they made a mistake, they're much more likely to feel positive and be willing to take chances and take risks and therefore develop as a player. So I hope that sort of answered a few questions and got a little bit out of the way at the start. We do need to move on to talking to Tayna, but again, the idea and the philosophy of Greg Farrell, of Jess Lindquist, of Gordon Tiong, of Rihanna Politina, of Chelsea Winchcombe, of Jodie Hammond, George Paulos, Corey Smith. Like, there's loads of really, really good, smart futsal people. Everybody has their own differences and ways of doing things, but if we as a game are moving forwards, then we can cooperate, we talk, and someone like Mick Day is a really good example. I talk with him quite often. We discuss ideas and ways that we can make the game better, but all of these people together need to be listened to and also listen to each other. So, all right, we will get Tayna onto the stream. If you bear with me 2 seconds, we'll just get Annie to get Tayna on. While we are getting Tayna on, to touch on what I have just discussed. So, moving forward, we would like to get more coaches involved in discussing different matters, technical, tactical, on these streams. And you can just see we are joined now by Tayna. Over the coming weeks, we will have people from Perth and other cities from around Australia involved. Next week, we will have Diego Garcia from the Phoenix Futsal Club here in Perth, and also Rihanna Politina from Sydney on with me. So we are trying to organise more people from a variety of backgrounds as we go forwards. But as you can see, thank you very much for joining us, Tayna. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, I am good. We'll jump straight in. So, yep. As we discussed during the week, your football background obviously comes and was heavily influenced by your Brazilian roots. Going back to 2015, I know for you it might seem like a long time ago. We in Perth, we started the mixed Superliga, and then we got you involved with the representative side of the game. What are the big changes that you've seen since those days?
Definitely the quality of players. That's absolutely. When we started playing in 2015, we had a small pool of girls, and I'm going to speak from the female perspective of it. Yeah. So we had this small pool of girls, so we used to play each other 3-4 times in a row, and then it's the same game, and now it's completely different. It changed. We have way more players. Players that have been playing in Spain that came here. We have players that are starting to play and getting involved with the Superliga B as well. That was a great addition. So I think we grew in scope a lot. And with that, with more players playing, the quality goes up as well.
Yeah. So the talent pool has definitely got bigger.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like you said, the addition of a second division, I think, has also made a big difference. And this is something we've seen some of the younger girls come through the youth competition. What do you think? You've obviously played quite a lot against male players, and this was something that Audrey mentioned last week. He said one thing that we do very well is that we train our representative players together. So you've trained with the men quite a lot. Do you think for the younger girls that's had a positive influence?
Absolutely, and I think as well. We have a very inaccurate perspective what football in Brazil is. For girls, we don't actually have the development that we have here. So the opportunities for girls 10, 11, 12 years old to come and play, we don't actually have that. It's very hard for you to find. And when you come with a developed program and also being able to enjoy the part of playing with boys, because it is a different game. We are smaller, we have to think faster, we have to react to stuff way quicker than what it would be if we're playing against girls.
Yeah.
So it is a huge opportunity for girls here. And I think sometimes the girls don't actually realize how big of an opportunity it is. Because we don't have this opportunity in South America. Not at all.
Not at all. Okay. Well, the next question was about your move into, I guess the style of play and what you would tell yourself if looking back 5 years. What would you say to Tayna from 2015?
The first thing is, kid, you have a left foot. Just use it. Just use it. And it's something that I probably should be telling myself now as well. But I think the second thing that I would definitely say is to drop my ego. Because when I go to training, it's fairly easy to get the ball and just kick a ball with my right and just bang, bang, bang. And I can't see much improvement in there. And it was honestly just for my ego. And taking a step back and being a little bit more humble and be like, okay, where can I improve on? Where is... And allowing myself to fail as well. Absolutely. Allowing myself to fail. To be like, okay, 10 times I scored once with my left. Okay, next time I will do it with this. I'll score twice and then increase from there. So yeah, use my left foot for sure, and drop my ego. I think that's the two things that I would definitely say to myself 5 years ago.
We just on the ego, we have, and you and I have had these conversations several times about your jumps in maturity, and I guess that probably touches on the next question. You started coaching with a representative team, an under-16 boys team, which had kids like Tom Ellis, Lockie Bird, Campbell Williams. I think from memory that was 2017. What did coaching or did coaching help with that maturity and that? You were saying a dropping of the ego. I think it was more just the maturity to understand. But did coaching give you more of a holistic view?
I think it allowed me to be a little bit more adaptable. To see the game as a whole, and understand, okay, I need to translate this game to kids that because of their age they can't do it. So how am I gonna do that in the easiest way possible? And just having to put my foot down and be like, okay, how am I gonna communicate this? And how am I going to translate this in the easiest possible way so they can understand what I'm saying? It made me, okay, am I doing stuff too complicated? And I'm just saying, and I'm not even saying drills. I'm saying every single thing that I was doing. I tried to simplify everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that helped.
All right. Yeah. Well, I know that those boys are, and again, this is probably something that you haven't necessarily been told, but I know that those boys really enjoyed your coaching. So, and again, the team that you had in January at the national championships, I'm sure would all say very similar things. All right. So, last question before we will start to talk or take questions from people who are posting online. How has your tactical thinking evolved
as you started coaching, and as obviously we had greater influences coming in from Europe with coaches that we had involved, with people traveling overseas and playing overseas, how do you think the game and your own game has evolved from 4 or 5 years ago to now?
Um, so I think being coached by you definitely helped a lot. That's
Thank
that's
you.
that's for sure. Yeah, so like when I used to play in Brazil, it wasn't a structured playing. It was just me and the boys going to the streets, kicking the ball around, and there was no rotations and anything like that. And nutmegging someone was worth more than a goal. Coming here, when I was put in a structure, it was very hard for me to, okay, I need to balance how am I going to use my skills to how I can be best used for the team. And I think it's what I said before. You need to be it's adaptability. You know, you need to understand that, okay, if I'm playing with, let's say, Lauren, I'll try to play in a way that I know that is going to emphasize the way she plays.
Yeah.
She's faster than me, a better defender. I'll do a different role. If I'm playing with Zoe, I'm not even gonna worry about being that fixer, because she does that perfectly. So I think what evolved from coaching and for and the years playing as well is definitely I can understand now my role and what I can do to make my players play better. And if that means that I have to sit on the bench, I'm not gonna like it, but I can understand that. And yeah.
That was, and again, this is me speaking about things that have been said in different situations. Um, that was something that quite a few people have noticed in the last 12 to 18 months, is that you have matured again. There's been another maturity spurt where you're not just controlling games, but and in the Superliga, you and Lauren work really well, and you've got a really good side with the Scarborough Sharks. You've got Tanisha Baker, Chloe
Yeah.
McGlynn, you've got Steph, you've got Louise Gashubel. Like, you've got some excellent players in that group. Even down to in your second team, in your B team, during the season, you had little ones like Talia Curum, who's only 13 or 14. So your leadership skills are also being tested and being developed with that. So I would suggest that the leadership skills have developed through lots of different avenues. But what about tactically, in terms of actual, and this will then go into your coaching, systems and defensive, I guess, structures? What are your preferences? What are your intentions when you walk on the court?
Uh, again, coaching by you cannot appreciate 4-0. That's just a given. Playing 4-0 is definitely my favorite. I think when you know the players you're playing with, because it's a very hard system for you to be able to adapt, and you can't just go into a team and let's play 4-0. But when you've been playing for a few years together and you know where their players are gonna be, you know where they pass, you know how they run, 4-0 for me is the best system that we can use. But in saying that, my favorite is actually a 3-1,
Very well.
but with the target isolated. I don't like when the target come in to the rotation.
You
I
mean
like when
the pivot?
yeah, okay, the
Yeah,
pivot.
yeah,
I don't like it when, personally, obviously,
yes, yeah,
style of play, when they come in too much to participate. I like isolating the target because I like to put that ball diagonally to the
yeah,
second player in a run.
yeah.
So my favorite definitely 3-1.
Very well.
Yeah.
Well, and I had a funny feeling you would say 3-1.
Yeah.
I certainly, having worked with coaches like Audrey and having learned the 4-0 myself into much greater depth over the last few years, I certainly enjoy watching it. And I know that when players are really moving and connecting, that the 4-0 can just look like poetry in motion. But the 3-1 certainly has its uses, and its fundamentals are very, I guess, sound. And there's always going to be room for a player such as yourself who can play in any position, as a fixo, as a flanker, as a pivot. And the 3-1 in a situation where you get isolated is certainly going to be a very, very good system to use. Putting you one against the defender is always going to favour yourself.
Yeah.
So I do understand that. All right, we've got a couple of questions. So first of all, Fionn, he said, as an organisation looking after so many different leagues, improving on what aspect of play would have the greatest effect on the quality of futsal that we play? So I'm assuming Fionn's sort of asking, what aspect do you think a lot of the clubs could improve on to improve the overall quality? Please correct me, Fionn, if I've misinterpreted that.
I think not just Superliga. I think Australian football in general, and that is the biggest difference for me when you look at Brazilian football, is that when you're saying to a player, you're going to play 3-1, that player put that in their head and they can't translate, and they can't. So yeah, I think, and if you give that little bit of a freedom for a player to use their skills and enjoy themselves a little bit, a lot of the teams, because if you look at the boys comp, you have some great talent in there, great skills. Sometimes I'm like, wow. I watch Manny play and I'm like, how, well, what's going on there? I just think that little bit of freedom to be able to use it outside the system.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I would also then sort of add on a question to that. Do you think the rigidity, the idea that we have to stay like this, do you think that comes from coaches, or do you think it possibly comes from players not understanding that they do have the freedom?
I think it's coaches. I think coaches are a big part of it. If the coach doesn't make clear for a kid that it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay to try.
Certainly.
But I also think it's the culture of outdoor football here.
Yeah.
That is very, very structured. Because until a certain age, until 14, kids, we in Brazil would just play. Just get the ball and play it at all times. Here, because it is so structured from early on, it is, they can't think for themselves a little bit. So it's very like, okay, my coach told me to do this, I'll do it. Yeah. So I think it's a coaches have a big part to play in that for sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Two more questions just quickly because we do need to move on. How do you think the quality of the Superliga has changed, and what other improvements do you think can be made moving forward? So it's from Lauren Baker.
Hey, Loz. First, what has improved already? I think more girls playing. That is for sure. I think if we can get more girls in this idea of showing them how beautiful futsal is, that's just the improve. We had probably a set core of girls, and now it grows so much that it's very hard for us to pick setting.
Yeah.
That for me it shows the improvement in quality, because before it was these girls that were playing, we knew who was gonna go. Now it's like work hard, because if you don't work you can't get in. Yeah. So it's for me that's a huge improvement. The
talent pool.
second, yeah, the talent pool. I think what we can do to make it better, is trying to find a time to train. Because as you said before, some players like myself, Jade, Kayla, we've trained 5-6 times a week. Whenever there's training, we're there. But most players don't have this opportunity, and I think you only improve. You improve so much watching YouTube videos. You only improve with the ball in your feet, and I think we need to encourage more girls to do that more often, for sure.
Yeah. And so the last question. So Lauren also mentioned the international court. I know in 2014 you guys were playing on a small court and then in 2015 we did change that. So with the Superliga, do you think that has made a big difference? And so Lauren and Amir have touched on that. So you can answer that one. And then the last bit is, what have you noticed about the quality of the national championships?
So first, the court. You cannot implement a good rotation, a good system in a small court. It's impossible. You can have really good skills, and it's a game of who can shoot from halfway and score, and it looks good. But the tactical part of futsal, it's very hard to implement when it's a small court. It's very hard. You can't do a rotation. It's easier to mark. Pretty much
it's a much more individual game.
Yeah, so I think as a collective, that helped us a lot. And the second question, the nationals. It's very hard for me to evaluate that because I went the first time I was 17, and I was playing in the women's comp. So at the time we did have a youth comp, I think, but I was playing both.
Yeah, you played both. Yeah.
And I was exhausted. I didn't know what I was expect, and I was like, "Oh my god!" So with the time passing, now I know how to save myself, and it feels physically easier. I know when I should run. I know what I should do. So physically, it feels easier. Mentally, is still very full on, and I think the quality of playing. And I remember playing this year. It was the best futsal game I've ever played. Was the group stage against East Coast. We actually lost that game 8-4, and it was amazing. So the quality of it, it's good. I just think I learned how to manage myself a little bit better, so I don't feel the difference.
Well, that's experience.
Yeah, that's
all
it.
right. Tayna, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Please make sure you look after yourself, stay safe,
I
and
will.
stay well.
You too.
And if other people have questions for Tayna, please feel free to put them up and we'll get them answered online. Tayna, thank you very much. I'll talk to you soon.
See ya. Bye, guys.
All right, we will move on nice and quickly, and we'll get Hayley, Jahn onto the live stream as quickly as we can. Again, something that was just touched on by Tayna, and it was a question from Lauren, the differences with the national championships. I think with futsal as a whole, there is always improvement, and every year that players are playing, there will be improvements. My point when I was speaking at the start of the show, the segment, was that if we have plans and if we work together, that improvement will be quicker. We'll develop as a game much quicker. So thank you again to Tayna, and good afternoon, Hayley. How are you?
Hello. Good, thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. We'll move on nice and quickly. So just so that everyone has a little bit of a background of yourself, you came into futsal towards the end of 2015. Your brother Kai had been playing in a club competition and gone away for a representative side. And that then meant that you Like you came in and you played with the Hawks, the Northern Hawks. You've been the vice captain for the youth women's state team, and you've gone over to Europe as a part of an Australian side, all in the last couple of years. When you started playing, you started 6 to 12 months after a group of players who have gone on to be some key players within our youth women's and our women's setup. What was it like starting just after that group? And how did you go about catching up so that you are now at a place where you've even gone beyond some of those players?
Yeah, well, when I first trialled, I didn't know anyone. And I remember Jess Lindquist came to me before I started and she's like, look, this group has just been to Brisbane. Like, they're all really tight-knit. They're all really good friends. And just to kind of like warn me. And I remember, so I was already intimidated. And then, yeah, when I started, I knew that I wasn't the same level as others. Like, it was pretty obvious. And I had only played one season of outdoor and I couldn't really cook a ball. So it was a bit of a drastic difference. But yeah, I think when I trialled, I obviously didn't get in, but I was offered to be a shadow player, a reserve player. And I think because it meant that I could train with the girls, it was really beneficial for me. And I think it was a really good environment to learn and to develop in, especially because I was so far out of my comfort zone. But yeah, I could ask a million questions and everyone was so supportive of it. So I think as much as it was hard, I think it could have been worse. Like I was in a very good environment to be learning something so new. And
Yeah.
so yeah, but I think yeah, one of the harder things was my perspective probably changed about it. Like I went from seeing it as a fun thing to realizing that it's not only fun, but I can actually do well and I can actually get better and develop. And I became more serious about it. And then the next year I got in to the state team. So it was really good as much as it was difficult.
And do you think, so just on that, do you think that not making the team first time around gave you more of a kick along to really work hard in that next couple of seasons of the next period of time?
Yeah, I think definitely. Like it made me work harder, but it also kind of made me aware of like how much I do have to improve to get to the level that like I wanted to be at. So
Yeah.
I think yeah, it was good.
Yeah. All right. It's something that I personally believe a lot of young players and a lot of young people are missing is that failure. We quite often give
Yeah.
people participation medals and certificates for everything. And again, this is a personal opinion, but it sometimes takes away exactly what you've just said you experienced, where you had to miss out on the team in that first opportunity to understand that what you were going to be doing was worthwhile.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
similar to that, when my under 15s team came second at nationals, it was devastating, obviously, but I far preferred that year. Like I enjoyed it so much more than I did when we won. Like I don't know what it is, but it's just so much more. It gives you so much more for like failure does than it does succeeding, I guess.
Success.
Yeah.
I hope, I do hope
As,
you were able to enjoy the
yeah, I
enjoy
did
the
enjoy it. It
success.
was awesome.
Yeah.
But I learnt more from the second
Yes,
place.
learn more. Good. All right,
Yeah.
that's good. Just because I quite often get told that I don't celebrate winning enough, and I'm glad that I seem to have rubbed off on you a little bit there. So back in 2015 when you started, you would have been training with the Junior Futsal Academy. How have things changed day to day, week to week, from then to now with your futsal training? How do you approach training and games differently now
Well,
to what you did back then?
yeah, well, when I was first starting out, it was only a weekend thing, so it was very much just a fun thing that I did on the weekend. Whereas now we've got the opportunity to be training and playing basically every day. And so I think again, my perspective sort of changed from it being just only a fun thing that you did to, no, you can actually work hard and train hard and you get better, and it's a lot more rewarding. So yeah, I think a lot of things have changed day to day, but yeah, I did specifically, I just wanted to talk about how I used to film the games on the weekend, and now that I get to score, I wouldn't give that up. But it was so beneficial for me. Like, I could watch and learn, and it really developed my interest in futsal and the analysis and understanding side of the game. And I think that also helped my perspective of, oh my gosh, I can actually do that. I can get better and I can learn. But yeah.
So Hayley, just for everyone's information, Hayley used to record the Super League matches before and after she played, which meant that she was literally sitting watching futsal for 6, 8, 10 hours on a weekend.
Yeah.
All right. So you've also just started to be involved in coaching in the last 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
You've helped out with the Northern Hawks second women's team. We obviously train as a group on Monday nights with the first team and the second team train together. And then you also started to help out with the junior national championship training. How do you think you have developed as a player based on seeing things from your coaching, and what have you learned from doing that coaching?
Yeah. I've learnt so much, but I narrowed it down to 3 things. I learnt a lot from the other coaches and being able to watch how they handle different situations, and also that every player responds differently. So I like that I've been able to watch and be able to learn from other people, because it means that I can sort of gather what's most effective and then implement it into how I coach, but also how I play and how I instruct people on the court.
Yeah.
It's, yeah, an example of that sort of is how everyone's different is when you're doing a warm-up for a game, there's people who are focused and not thinking about anything else, and then there's people who have to be making jokes or enjoying themselves to prepare themselves for the game. And
Yeah.
It's just interesting how everyone responds differently, and I think I've learnt a lot about that. Then the second thing I thought about was I learnt a lot about progression in regards to the expectations of learning. And I think it's really easy to forget that a little kid can't just pick up all these concepts in a couple of weeks. It's very difficult to do that. And so, yeah, I think I've learned a lot about age groups.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then my third thing was in relation to the development of kids who are just beginning with futsal. And I think that is the importance of repetition and reinforcing the same ideas through different drills, and how much that helped me when we first started, and how that's basically the academy and how much that helped. But yeah, I think that's the main 3 things I've learned. That's what I could narrow it down to.
No, those answers were terrific and very well thought out. So moving forwards, what do you see? What would you like to accomplish? Where would you like to go with futsal?
Yeah, well, with futsal, in Australia, both for females and males, there's the local level, and then there's state level and national level, but there's nothing really beyond that. And so what I thought would be really amazing if we could introduce in Australia is a professional level, a professional league that's similar to the W League or the A League, because yeah, I just think futsal deserves to be so much bigger than it is, because it's such an amazing sport, and I really wish it was more recognised, because I feel sometimes it's seen as just a social sport, but it's so much more than that. And yeah, I think if a professional league was implemented over time, it could be so much, it could become really competitive with outdoor football.
Mm.
So yeah, that's
I certainly agree with you and love the idea. We've had some questions from people as well. So
Okay.
we've still got a few minutes left. So first question, are there women's players who you look up to in the Superliga competitions and in the representative teams. That was from Lauren Baker.
There's so many. I have to get out my list. Oh my gosh. Like, there's heaps, and the best part about it is I get to be playing with them and playing against them. But yeah, Lauren's one of them.
I'm sure she'll appreciate that. The next thing from Tom Ellis, do you remember the first person you met, or the first people who you looked up to when you started playing?
Yeah, so I think the first people I kind of looked up to were Chelsea and Angie and Jess Lindquist. They're probably like the biggest. And
Some very good names there.
Almost Dead. But yeah, and then playing with the first person I met, I'm pretty sure it was Flick, but I think I became closer with Keely quicker.
Yeah.
And I kind of knew Verity, so I'd like go to her with drills and be like, what does that mean? But yeah, I think I became closest with Keely first.
Yeah.
Out of everyone.
And from Barry Tetley, did you find playing and training with the boys helpful?
Yeah, I think playing with the boys is so helpful. Like, I used to play with Kings before like the same club rule was implemented, but when I used to play with Kings, it was amazing because the pace is so much faster and you have to think so much quicker, and you get a lot out of it, because then you get to bring that to women's and it increases the women's quality. So I don't know, I really enjoy playing with boys. I don't know if I could choose.
You've also done that with the Hawks youth team, helping out on quite a few occasions. Yeah. Next question from Lauren. How do you feel about playing, or your siblings playing as well?
It's better when we're on the same team. When we're on different teams, we get really rough with each other, I suppose. Like, Kai pushed me in one of the games and I tripped him over. Like, those sort of things. Like, because when you're playing at home, there aren't rules, so you can not hurt them, but you can be a lot more like pushy shovey. And so you kind of forget that when you're playing with siblings or playing against.
Yeah, but that makes it a little bit fun, especially at training when I get to put you on different teams just for fun.
Yeah, I really like how I can see things of me in them. So like one of my best qualities is probably like my sort of like my flicks and like my balls to other people.
Your passing in general is pretty bloody good. Yeah.
Thank you. But I really love it when I see like Kyle just doing flicks to people, because I'm like, oh, I feel like I did that. Like, you know, even though it wasn't.
I helped.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Last two questions. So your sister has put a comment on saying, and how your younger sister outshines you. I'll leave that one Definitely. For you guys to have a bit of an argument when you're off the live stream.
Yeah.
So last question.
Yeah, that All-Star jersey is getting to her head.
Yeah. What's the hardest part of the game for you? A physical or a technical aspect, or a mental aspect for you to stay focused during games? That one's from Halil.
Okay. That's a really good question. I think that mentally, I usually don't struggle with it, but it's more so staying, like, I play best when I'm my most confident. So if I'm doubting myself, I then don't play as well. So I think it's maintaining a balance of that is probably what's most difficult. And then physically, I had to like really work on my tackling, because I just get too excited and too aggressive and I just foul people. And so it's like not on purpose, obviously, but yeah. And so I think I had to work on that a lot and like dull it down to like a good level, and knowing when to be aggressive or when you don't need to be aggressive, like when it's not worth it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
What else was there? There was another part at the beginning.
He said physical or technical.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think definitely my speed and like quickness. I feel like I'm always having to know what's going to come next because I'm not as fast as some of the other people, like in the women's league. But I think, yeah, I think if I'm focused and I'm mentally fine, I usually can stay on top of that. But yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. Oh, hang on a second. No. Annie was just writing something out. I'll leave it there, Hales. Thank you very much for your time.
All right.
Please make sure you and the family stay safe and well. Please don't hurt
Yeah.
Jess too much for her comment.
Yeah, I'll try not to.
Thank you very much for your time and your really good answers. Really, really
Alrighty.
appreciated.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hales. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
I don't know how to leave.
All right, so that was Tayna and Hayley for our second segment. We have had a few other questions come in, so I'll try and get onto them in the next segment next week. Just to finish off, we were discussing at the start, and then both Tayna and Hayley have just touched on the developmental side of the game. I think one of the big issues that we have in Australia, and Hayley just said with futsal, is that it's still considered a secondary sport. It's looked at as a version of football rather than a sport in its own right, and a lot of people don't see futsal as a specific game. One of the things that a lot of the coaches in Europe and South America say is that futsal actually has more in common with basketball than it does with outdoor football. So yes, there are derivatives, and the main ideas are similar in that there's a round ball on the floor, we're all using our feet, and we've got to put it in one of the goals. But the tactical ideas and the depth is much more developed in futsal, and it's much similar to basketball. So when we are working with juniors, sometimes it's easy to get lost in trying to develop that tactical stuff too early. And again, this was discussed with Audrey last week with juniors, having them enjoy themselves, learning and making decisions as they play, with an individual focus initially, 1v1s, 2v2s, where they're working on themselves until they get to 11 or 12. Maybe some 9-year-olds have developed quicker and are already at that level, but where they're starting to think bigger picture. But I think especially for young kids, let them enjoy themselves, let them have fun, work on those small-sided environments. And those are things that outdoor football now is starting to incorporate more as well. The FFA have put small-sided games in their curriculum. The coaching curriculum involves technical drills that look like drills and activities that futsal coaches and futsal teams have been doing for 15 or 20 years. So I think people will wise up, and to Hayley's point about a professional game in Australia, our biggest issue is distance. We can only focus on what we can do day to day, week to week, helping our kids to get better, working with those ideas and developing them is the key. Everything else is to administrators and sponsors, government, about putting money into the game. Those big questions will only evolve over time, but with coaching, especially with kids, give them the chance to play. Like Tayna said, kids in Brazil, it's a ball, a group of friends, and they just play until they're 13 or 14. And I think sometimes that structure with kids isn't a great thing. We just need to let them play more. Help them out, of course, give them ideas, but then just let them play. All right. Was there any other? No. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm really glad to see the number of people contributing, asking questions, and watching. I know it's a Saturday afternoon and even Saturday evening across Australia, but it's greatly appreciated, your input and your comments during the week, your questions. I see East Coast Futsal are watching. Hey guys over there, Hope everyone is well. Please stay safe. Everybody across the country, please make sure, again, you thank teachers, people who work in banks, people at Woolies, doctors, nurses, any friends that you have who are still essential workers and are on the front lines interacting with people every day. Please make sure you thank them. I think in Australia, the curve is flattening and we're doing really well, but please don't get complacent. Don't go out and do silly things. We want to make sure people stay safe and healthy. All the best. And thank you again to Annie for her help each week. This stuff wouldn't happen without her. Please, everybody stay safe, stay well, and we will see you next week. Thank you.